Hello, and welcome to the 2aTacticalDad Christmas Special. Merry Christmas, everyone. While Christmas is typically associated with joy and generosity, several folklore traditions, especially across Europe, feature a darker side. Mythical creatures who punish the wicked, terrorize the misbehaving, and remind us that winter's darkness once held genuine fear. This guide documents these creatures, their origins, traditional protections, and for the more pragmatically minded among us, an assessment of whether modern firearms might prove effective against them. We're starting in the Alps, Austria, Bavaria, Switzerland, where the snow-covered mountains hold some of the most terrifying Christmas figures in European folklore. And the most famous of these is Krampus. Originating in Austria, Bavaria, and the Alpine regions, the name derives from the German word Krampen, meaning claw, first attested in the 16th century. Krampus is a horned, anthropomorphic figure, half goat, half demon, who accompanies St. Nicholas on his visits to children on the night of December 5th, Krampusnacht. While St. Nicholas rewards well-behaved children with small gifts, Krampus punishes the badly behaved with birch rods. In more severe versions of the legend, he is said to stuff particularly naughty children into a basket and carry them away to be eaten or dragged off to hell. He is typically depicted with dark fur, cloven hooves, chains, which he rattles menacingly, bells, and a long pointed tongue. He carries a bundle of birch switches called ruten, and often has a wicker basket strapped to his back for abducting children. Weaknesses and protections. Good behavior. Krampus only targets misbehaving children. Also schnapps, traditionally offered as an appeasement. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating, low to negligible. Krampus is a demonic entity, possibly the son of Hel, Norse goddess of the underworld. Operating with the divine permission under St. Nicholas's authority, standard 12-gauge buckshot is unlikely to be effective against an infernal being that has existed for centuries. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. 12-gauge loaded with silver buckshot that has been blessed by a Catholic priest and splashed with holy water. The combination of physical stopping power with sacred elements may cause some discomfort. However, Krampus serves divine justice. Shooting him is essentially interfering with cosmic punishment, which may have theological consequences beyond the immediate tactical situation. Better alternative, evasion. Leave the Alpine region entirely on December 5th. Hide in consecrated ground, or simply behave yourself. But Krampus isn't the only thing lurking in the Alpine winter. There's something older, and arguably worse. Meet Frau Perchta. Originating in Bavaria, Austria, Switzerland, and Slovenia, her name derives from the Old High German Pert, meaning bright or shining, connecting her to the Feast of the Epiphany. She may have pre-Christian origins as a goddess figure related to Hulda. Perchta is a witch-like figure who roams the countryside during the 12 days of Christmas, particularly on the 12th night. She has a dual nature, appearing either as a beautiful woman and dressed in white, or a haggard old crone with an iron beak-like nose, ragged clothes, and one large goose foot. She inspects households to ensure that work, particularly spinning, has been completed, and that homes are clean and orderly. Good children and diligent workers may find a small silver coin. However, those who have been lazy or fail to leave her a traditional offering face horrific punishment. Perchta will slit open their bellies, remove their internal organs, and stuff up the cavity with straw, pebbles, and garbage before sewing them back up. Weaknesses and protections. Complete your work. Finish all spinning and household chores the day before her feast day. Traditional food offerings. Leave out the correct meal, fish and gruel, or a regional variation thereof. Eat the proper foods on her feast night. And keep a clean house. Perchta despises disorder and slovenliness. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating, negligible. Perchta is likely a degraded pagan goddess related to Hulda or Frigg, who leads the wild hunt. Her dual-form nature, beautiful maiden and hideous crone, and association with supernatural entourages suggest that she operates entirely outside physical laws. She attacks while victims sleep, implying she may be incorporeal or able to bypass defenses. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. None practical. Perchta's approach is surgical. She slits bellies with supernatural precision and stuffs them with debris. By the time you're aware of her presence, the engagement is already over. Sleeping in body armor, a steel cuirass, or modern plate carrier covering the abdomen may be more practical than firearms. A better alternative, complete your chores. Leave proper offerings, eat only fish and gruel on the 12th night, and spend that evening in a hotel far away from home. Now, not all these figures stayed in Europe. Some came to America. If you're in Pennsylvania Dutch country, you might encounter this next one. Belsnickel. Originating in the Palatine region of Germany and brought to Pennsylvania by German immigrants in the 19th century, the name combines Pels, fur, with nickel, the diminutive of Nicholas. Belsnickel is a fur-clad figure who visits children in early December, combining the roles of gift giver and punisher into one. He wears tattered, dirty clothing covered in fur, and sometimes a mask with a long tongue. He carries both a sack of sweets and a switch, or a whip. Unlike the other companions who accompany St. Nicholas, Belsnickel works alone. He throws candy on the floor and watches children scramble for it. Those who reach for the sweets too greedily may receive a swat from his switch. His purpose is to encourage all children to reform their behavior before Christmas arrives. Weaknesses and protections. Good behavior. Children who behave and show restraint receive sweets instead of beatings. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating, uncertain, possibly moderate. Belsnickel occupies an ambiguous position. In Pennsylvania Dutch tradition, he's often portrayed by community members, very much immortal in a costume, but his folkloric origin suggests something more supernatural, a spirit bridging the gift giver and punisher roles. His threat level is also relatively low. Swats with a switch, not being disemboweled. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. Before deploying lethal force, confirm you're not about to shoot a neighbor in a fursuit. If facing a genuine folkloric entity, standard 12-gauge buckshot may have moderate effect, though the moral implications of shooting a figure who merely swats greedy children are questionable. A better alternative, show restraint when candy is thrown. Accept any swats gracefully. This punishment is very minor. Back in Germany, there's another companion of St. Nicholas, one whose name was literally synonymous with the devil. Knecht Ruprecht appears in Germany, first appearing in written sources in the 17th century in Nuremberg. Knecht means servant or farmhand. Notably, Ruprecht was also a common name for the devil in Germany. Knecht Ruprecht is St. Nicholas's most well-known companion in Germany. He appears as a man with a long beard, wearing a black or brown robe with a pointed hood, often covered in fur or pea straw. He carries a long staff, a bag of ashes, and sometimes wears small bells on his clothing. Some accounts describe him as walking with a limp from a childhood injury. According to tradition, Knecht Ruprecht asks children whether they can recite their prayers. Children who can pray receive apples, nuts, and gingerbread. Those who cannot are beaten with his bag of ashes or given lumps of coal, sticks, and stones. Weaknesses and protections. Know your prayers. Children who can recite prayers are often rewarded. Good behavior. Well-behaved children receive treats. With Knecht Ruprecht's last name being historically synonymous with the devil in Germany, and Jacob Grimm connecting him to pre-Christian household spirits, known as kobolds, his supernatural nature in association with St. Nicholas suggests that conventional weapons would be ineffective. He also operates under ecclesiastical authority. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. Blessed ammunition may have marginal effect, but engaging Knecht Ruprecht means engaging St. Nicholas's direct servant, a poor theological position. His worst punishment is beating with ashes. This is survivable without lethal escalation. A better alternative. Memorize the Lord's Prayer, the Apostles' Creed, and a few Psalms. When asked if you can pray, demonstrate competently. Problem solved. Now we leave the Alps behind and head north, way north, to Iceland, where Christmas folklore gets genuinely terrifying. We're talking about an entire family of monsters, and at the head of the family is the worst of them all. Grýla. First mentioned in Icelandic texts in the 13th century, though not specifically connected with Christmas until the 17th century. Grýla is a towering, monstrous ogress who lives in a cave in Iceland's volcanic mountains. She's described as enormous and hideously repulsive, with hooves for feet, multiple tails, sometimes up to 15, each holding bags that can carry 20 children, cloven hooves, horns, and in some accounts, hundreds of heads with multiple eyes on each. During the Christmas season, Grýla descends from the mountains to hunt misbehaving children. She carries them away in her giant sack and returns to her cave, where she cooks them in a massive cauldron. Her favorite dish is a stew of naughty children, and legend says there is never a shortage of food for Grýla. She's been married 3 times and reportedly ate one husband out of boredom. She's the matriarch of a terrifying family that includes her lazy third husband, the monstrous Yule Cat, and her 13 sons, the Yule Lads. Weaknesses and protections. Good behavior. Grýla only hunts misbehaving children. Also potentially holy water. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating, low, requires heavy weaponry. Grýla is described as enormous, a giant troll or ogress who has survived since the 13th century and eaten at least one husband. A 12-gauge shotgun is unlikely to be adequate against a creature of her described size and durability. She's a troll, and in Norse tradition, trolls are notoriously difficult to kill by conventional means. Sunlight turns some to stone, but Grilla operates during the dark Icelandic winter. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. Escalate significantly. Consider 50 BMG rifles such as the M82A1 Barrett, vehicle-mounted weapons or crew-served weapons such as the M2 Browning machine gun. Explosive ordnance might also be required. Given her cave dwelling, thermobaric weapons could prove effective, but acquiring such weapons in Iceland presents significant legal challenges. A better alternative: be an adult. She only hunts children. If you're a child, leave Iceland immediately, or behave impeccably. But Grilla doesn't live alone. She keeps a pet, and this is where things get interesting, because unlike everything else on this list, this one might actually be killable with firearms. The Yule Cat, whose Icelandic name I will not be butchering in this episode. First definitively mentioned in an 1862 collection of folklore, became firmly established in Icelandic Christmas tradition through a 1932 poem about the Yule Cat. The Yule Cat is a massive, vicious black cat that belongs to Grilla's household and lurks in the snowy Icelandic countryside during the Christmas season. This enormous feline prowls the land looking for people who have not received any new clothing to wear before Christmas Eve and devours them. The legend likely originated as an incentive for workers to finish processing wool before Christmas. Those who had worked hard would be rewarded with new clothes, and the lazy would have nothing new to wear and would face the Yule Cat. In some versions, the cat only eats the Christmas food of those without the new clothes rather than the people themselves. Weaknesses and protections. New clothing. Pair of socks will do ya. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating: moderate to high. Best candidate for conventional firearms. Unlike the other creatures on this list, the Yule Cat appears to be a flesh and blood animal, albeit an enormous one. It is described as a giant cat, not a spirit, demon, or supernatural entity. Large predatory animals can be killed with appropriate firearms. Recommended loadout: 12 gauge with 3-inch magnum slugs. This would be appropriate for a large predatory cat. For added insurance, a 45-70 government lever-action rifle or large caliber rifle chambered in a dangerous game cartridge, such as the 375 H&H or 416 Rigby, would provide excellent stopping power. Treat the engagement as you would a man-eating lion. Tactical considerations. The Yule Cat hunts at night in snowy terrain. Night vision equipment and thermal optics would provide a significant advantage. Establish defensive positions rather than pursuing it into its preferred environment. A better alternative: just buy some socks. Literally any new clothing defeats this creature entirely. And then there's Grilla's sons, the Yule Lads. Originating in Iceland and standardized in a 1932 poem, originally were depicted as threatening figures and kidnappers before being softened into pranksters and gift givers. The Yule Lads are the 13 sons of Grilla. They're large, troll-like figures who arrive one by one over the 13 nights before Christmas, each staying for 2 weeks before departing. Each Yule Lad has a distinctive name reflecting his particular form of mischief. Sheepcoat Clod harasses sheep, Gullygawk steals milk, Stubby steals pans to eat crusts, Spoon Licker, Pot Scraper, Bowl Licker, Door Slammer, Skier Gobbler, Sausage Swiper, Window Peeper, Doorway Sniffer, Meat Hook, and Candle Stealer. Originally, the Yule Lads were depicted as kidnappers and more dangerous figures. In modern times, they've been transformed into gift givers, similar to Santa Claus. Children leave shoes on their windowsills, and good children receive small gifts, while naughty children find rotten potatoes. Weaknesses and protections. Good behavior. Well-behaved children receive gifts. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating: uncertain. Disproportionate response. The Yule Lads are troll spawn, suggesting supernatural durability. However, their threat level is extremely low. They steal food, slam doors, peek in windows, and leave rotten potatoes. Employing lethal force against creatures whose worst defense is licking your spoons raises serious proportionality questions. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. Non-lethal deterrents are more appropriate. Rubber buckshot, beanbag rounds, or rock salt loads would likely discourage individual Yule Lads without the legal and moral complications of killing 13 troll brothers over some stolen sausages. If lethal engagement is somehow necessary, treat as hostile trolls and escalate to large caliber rifles. A better alternative: secure your food, lock your refrigerator, install blackout curtains, and accept the rotten potatoes. The Yule Lads are a nuisance, not existential threats. Now let's head back to mainland Europe. France, and the story of a man so evil that death couldn't stop him from terrorizing children at Christmas. Père Fouettard, originating in northern and eastern France, Belgium, and French-speaking Switzerland. The most popular origin story dates to around 1252, though another connects him to the siege of Metz in 1552. Père Fouettard accompanies St. Nicholas on his rounds during St. Nicholas's Day, dispensing coal and beatings to naughty children, while St. Nicholas gives gifts to the well-behaved. He appears as a sinister man with a dark, sooty face, scraggly, unkempt hair and beard, dressed in dark robes. He carries a whip, a large stick, or a bundle of switches, and sometimes wears a wicker backpack for carrying children away. The most popular origin story tells that Père Fouettard was an innkeeper or butcher who, along with his wife, murdered 3 wealthy boys on their way to boarding school, slitting their throats and cutting them into pieces and stewing them in a barrel. St. Nicholas discovered the crime and resurrected the children. Père Fouettard repented and became St. Nicholas's partner, or potentially was forced to serve as punishment for his crimes. Weaknesses and protections. Good behavior. Only naughty children receive punishment. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating? Low. Already dead. Père Fouettard's origin story involves him being a murderer who is either spiritually bound to serve St. Nicholas as punishment or who repented and joined voluntarily. Either way, he appears to exist in a state of supernatural servitude that has persisted since the 13th century. Conventional ammunition is unlikely to affect a being whose existence is tied to divine punishment or redemption. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. Blessed ammunition may have marginal effect, but engaging Père Fouettard directly challenges St. Nicholas's authority. This is an inadvisable theological position. Better alternative. As punishment is beatings with a switch. While unpleasant, this is survivable. Simply endure and resolve to behave better next year. Alternatively, don't put out shoes on December 5th. No invitation means no visit. Now, in the Alsace and Lorraine regions, there's another figure, one based on a real historical person, a man so wicked that God himself struck him down. But that wasn't the end of his story. Hans Trapp, originating in the Alsace and Lorraine regions of France, the legend is reportedly based on a real historical figure, Hans von Traffa, who lived from 1450 to 1503, a knight who was excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Hans Trapp is depicted as a scarecrow-like figure with straw jutting from his ragged clothing. According to legend, he was a wealthy, greedy, evil man who worshipped Satan and was excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Exiled into the forest, he became a wild man who preyed upon children. The story tells that he disguised himself as a scarecrow and was about to devour a young boy he had captured when he was struck by lightning and killed, a divine punishment for his wickedness. Despite his death, his spirit still visits children before Christmas, dressed as a scarecrow to frighten them into good behavior. Weaknesses and protections. Good behavior. Hans Trapp only targets misbehaving children. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating? Negligible. Ghost/revenant. Hans Trapp is explicitly described as having been killed by divine lightning strike. His continued appearances are as a spirit or revenant. You cannot kill what is already dead. Additionally, he was killed by God directly. His existence as a haunting figure appears to be divinely ordained punishment. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. No conventional firearms will be effective against a ghost. Blessed salt rounds might cause temporary dispersal. Religious artifacts and symbols may provide some protection given his excommunicated status from the church. Sacred objects likely retain some power over him. A better alternative. Avoid forests in the Alsace-Lorraine during the Christmas season. Carry religious symbols openly and be suspicious of any scarecrow that appears to be moving towards you. Now we head to Greece, and this is where we encounter something truly bizarre. Creatures that spend most of the year sawing at the great tree that holds up the earth, but take a break every Christmas season to come up and cause chaos. Kalikonseroi, originating in Greece with equivalents in Bulgarian, Serbian, Bosnian, Albanian, Cypriot, and Turkish folklore, are described as malevolent goblins who dwell underground for most of the year, ceaselessly sawing at the world tree that holds up the earth, trying to make it collapse. However, every year they're interrupted by the Christmas season. They appear as small, black, hairy creatures with animal features, horns, hooves, long tails, glowing red eyes, and sometimes dog-like faces. They're mostly blind, speak with a lisp, and feed on worms, frogs, and snakes. They only come out at night and enter homes through chimneys, windows, keyholes, and cracks to cause mischiefs, souring milk, extinguishing fires, stealing food, and terrorizing the inhabitants. In some regions, they slash victims with their sharp claws. Weaknesses and protections. The Kalikonseroi have the most extensively documented number of protective measures. Colanders and sieves. Leave a colander on your doorstep. The Kalikonseroi are compelled to count the holes but cannot count past 2, 3 being a holy number that would destroy them. Holy water. They flee when Greek priests bless homes with holy water, sprinkled with basil on the Epiphany. Fire. Keep the fireplace burning continuously through the 12 days to block the chimney entry and repel them with light and heat. Foul-smelling shoes. Burn old, smelly shoes on the fireplace. The stench drives them away. Salt. Throw salt into the fireplace to keep crackling noises going that frighten them. A black cross. Mark your door with a black cross on Christmas Eve. Pig's jawbone. Hang a pig's lower jaw behind the front door or inside the chimney. Incense. Burn incense to purify the home. And sunlight. They are creatures of the night and must return underground when exposed to daylight or when the Epiphany arrives. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating, uncertain, operates on folkloric logic. The Kali Consoroi present a tactical paradox. They have physical descriptions, small, hairy, and clawed, suggesting a corporeal form, but their documented weaknesses are almost absurdly non-violent. Colanders, smelly shoes, salt, holy water. A creature that can be defeated by being forced to count holes in a sieve operates on folkloric logic, not physical laws. Recommended loadout if engagement is unavoidable. A 12 gauge with blessed buckshot might work on individual creatures, given their small size and physical descriptions. However, they attack in numbers, at night, and can enter through any gap. Home defense with a shotgun would be viable but exhausting over 12 consecutive nights. Specialized ammunition consideration. Salt shells, loaded with rock salt, might be particularly effective given salt's documented repellent properties against these creatures. Holy water-soaked shot could combine physical stopping power with their known spiritual vulnerability. A better alternative, implement full defensive protocols, maintain continuous fire, deploy colanders at all entrances, and burn shoes and incense, hang pig jawbones, and mark doors with crosses, and stock some holy water. These methods are proven over the centuries. Firearms are experimental at best. And finally, let's head to Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. This last creature is different from all the others because it's not a seasonal visitor. It lives with you year-round, right now, probably under your floorboards. The Nisse, or Tomte, originates in Scandinavia and is rooted in pre-Christian Norse traditions of protective household spirits and ancestor worship, and have more recently been associated with the Christmas season. They're described as small, elderly household spirits with long white beards and dress in simple farmer's work clothes with a red and gray pointed cap. Despite being only about the height of a young child, they possess great strength. They live in the barn, pantry, or under the floorboards and act as guardians of the farmstead, protecting families, livestock, and property. While generally benevolent, helping with chores at night and bringing good fortune, the Tomte has a fierce temper and demands respect. If offended, neglected, or disrespected through laziness, rudeness, swearing, mistreatment of animals, or disorder, they become vengeful, playing pranks, hiding belongings, tying cows' tails together, breaking things, sabotaging the farm, or even killing livestock. A famous tale tells of a Tomte who, upon finding no butter on his Christmas porridge, killed the family's best cow in a rage, only to find the butter hidden at the bottom of the bowl. Feeling remorseful, he replaced the cow with one stolen from a neighboring farm. Weaknesses and protections. Christmas porridge with butter. Leave a bowl of Christmas porridge with a generous pat of butter visible on top on Christmas Eve. Remember, the butter must be on top, not at the bottom. Respect and courtesy. Treat the Tomte with respect. Never mock, insult, or ignore them. Cleanliness and order. Maintain a clean and orderly home and farm. Kind treatment of animals. Never mistreat livestock or farm animals. No swearing. Avoid cursing or rudeness in the home. Caution with clothing gifts. Giving a Tomte new clothes may backfire. Some stories say they consider themselves too good for work after receiving fine garments and will abandon the farm. Tactical firearms assessment. Effectiveness rating, negligible, invisible, and lives in your house. The Tomte is described as being skilled in illusions and able to make itself invisible. You cannot shoot what you cannot see. Furthermore, the Tomte lives in your home, specifically under your floorboards, in your barn, or in your pantry. It is a year-round cohabitant, not a seasonal invader. An armed conflict with your own household spirit is unwinnable. Strategic problem. Even if you could somehow engage the Tomte, killing your household guardian spirit would remove all protection from your farm and family. The Tomte's presence brings good fortune, its absence invites disaster. This is a situation where winning the fight means losing everything. Recommended loadout. A bowl, porridge, and butter. This is not a combat situation. It is a relationship that requires maintenance through respect and offerings. Better alternative. Apologize sincerely, out loud. They can hear you. Clean your home, treat your animals well, and leave porridge with butter on top on Christmas Eve. If the relationship is irreparably damaged, you may need to move to a new property and hope its Tomte is more forgiving. Of all the creatures documented in this guide, only the Yule cat presents a viable target for conventional firearms. It is described as a flesh and blood giant cat rather than a supernatural entity, and large predatory cats can be killed with appropriate ammunition and shot placement. All the other creatures on this list operate primarily through supernatural, divine, or folkloric mechanisms that render conventional weapons ineffective or irrelevant. The consistent pattern across traditions is that these beings are defeated through behavioral reform, religious observance, and traditional offerings, not violence. The best tactical advice for surviving this Yuletide season is behave yourself, complete your work, leave appropriate offerings, maintain a clean home, learn your prayers, acquire new clothing, and put butter on top of porridge. These methods are proven effective over centuries of deployment. And there you have it, your complete guide to the potentially hostile creatures of the Christmas season, and whether or not you can shoot them. Turns out, mostly no. If you found this helpful or at least entertaining, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment telling me which creature you'd least want to encounter, and maybe go buy some socks, just in case. Merry Christmas, Tactical family. Stay safe out there. Also, sorry for anything I absolutely slaughtered the pronunciation of during that episode. Merry Christmas.